SWB audio capture, not registered. 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 SWB audio capture, not registered.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2. Okay, got it. Great. Hey, this is Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit. Thank you all for joining us. As always, we're having fun with technical issues right first thing starting off. But letting you know, I think we're ready to go. We seem to be streaming on YouTube as well as on Facebook. Hopefully we'll have LinkedIn working by tomorrow, maybe even after lunch today. But wanted to, thank you all for coming out. And I do want to go ahead and get started in a few moments here. One of the things I want to actually give a shout out and want to all of the people who volunteer to be panelists and do these interviews, taking time out of their very busy schedules. And two, giving a special shout out to our sponsors, both Wacom and Toon Boom, who've been with us for 4 years. They have donated some really awesome prizes again. So we're going to be giving away some licenses as well as a few Wacom 1 pen tablets. So they've just updated those. So it's going to be a pretty awesome gift. And one of the things I wanted to mention and talk about, if you haven't heard us talk about this, is the idea of, and I'll be showing the interview with him later, but my friend, my colleague, my mentor, I go ultimate fanboy on this person, Mr. Tony White, is actually funding an app on Indiegogo right now. So I'm going to be mentioning that a lot during this week. Because I think it's a worthwhile project and it definitely needs some help. So even small amounts help a lot. So if you can't help with a pledge, definitely share so we can actually reach our initial goal in the next 20 days so we can keep it going. But I'll talk more about that later. I actually know. So today we have several people that are going to be on the panel, or excuse me, our panels today. We're going to be starting off with Susanna Rodriguez, following up at 11 o'clock with Mr. Tony White. We'll be taking lunch at noon and coming back at 1 p.m. with Mr. Dan Flores, 1:45 Rob Crump, and 2:30 it's going to be Elliot Cohen. Now, here's the way that these interviews work. Some of the interviews are right, they're like maybe 45 minutes or maybe even shorter. However, some of them are longer. There's one interview in particular, I think that's about 2.5 hours. So we're going to be playing the shorter versions this week, and these playlists are going to be available on YouTube. But next week, there'll be two separate playlists. It'll be the entire interviews. So if there's any interviews that are over 45 minutes, those will be played without my interruptions, without this little DJ kind of thing going on, as well as there'll be the playlist of the actual summit. So, that being said, we are going to be. I think we sent out the email yesterday saying what who's going to be on the show for, what is that called? Who will be on the show on the summit during the week up to Wednesday? We'll be announcing Thursday and Friday panelists later on today. So, also, if you're trying to win one of the prizes, please make sure you are signed up with signup.animationsummit.net. All right, with that being said, I'm going to get ready to go ahead and start with my friend and colleague, Miss Susanna Rodriguez. So, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and see if we can get this kicked off. Hey everyone, this is Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit. And not sure what order this will be in the show, but this is our first recording of the year. So I wanted to welcome back my friend, my colleague, Susanna Rodriguez. How are you?
Hello. Hi. I'm fine.
Awesome.
Looking for work. If anyone wants to hire me.
Yes, we are going to see if we can actually get that going. So tell us a little bit about who you are. I'm actually playing with one of the characters you sent me, but can you tell our audience a little, for those of you who don't know her from the previous years, explain who you are?
I am a character designer and a children's book illustrator for the past 11 years already. I'm currently working only between my country, like I live in São Paulo, Brazil. But I have been working. I come from a family of artists. So my dad is an art director and my mom is also a children's book illustrator. So the influence comes from there. But that's pretty much it. I enjoy what I do. It's not an easy career path, to be honest, because we have a lot of problems, but it is what it is. I can't lie that every job is perfect, but I managed to still be working 11 years. So for more 11 to come for me, at least for me, I hope.
Love it. Well, what I was talking to Susanna about this year, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to take one of her characters and do some rigging with us in harmony. And in particular, I thought, well, one, the eyes on this character are huge. I'm like, okay, I'm going to rebuild and animate this, or show how you would actually animate it in harmony. And the thing that we get to play around with, Susanna does not know harmony, so she gets to play student, and she's going to be asking questions, kind of playing as the audience, as it were. And at the same time, I am going to be talking through exactly how I'm setting things up and what I'm doing here. So this was
Mhm.
a simple PNG that I did import. And what we are going to build out is I'm going to draw first redraw some of the elements for the eye, and then I am going to actually rig it so we can move the iris around inside of the eye, which
Mhm.
I'm excited about this because I don't think I've ever drawn an eye this big. So this is going to be really cool. So anyway,
I like to draw big eyes.
yes, and
It's
you do it
something
well.
that I really enjoy to do. It's
Yes.
one of my favorite things to do is drawing eyes. So not hands, but eyes.
Okay, there are very few of us that actually enjoy drawing hands. I'm getting on my kid about that now. All right, so I'm going to zoom in here. By the way, I'm using my scroll wheel on my mouse, and I am using Harmony Premium if anyone is curious. So that's the top of the line or the flagship of Harmony. So what I want to first do is show you a little thing here. I can turn on this little ball over here, this little light bulb. It's called the light table, which means if I'm clicking on a different layer, I turn this on for a second. If I click on this, make sure I'm on the right tool. Thank you, drawing. Thank you. There we are. If I click on the light table, pretty much it drops the opacity, kind of drops it back so you can tell what layer you're on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing around initially with some of the little drawings here, and it's kind of tracing this out. And I want to show you how I did that. So I'm going to make a new little layer here. Let's call this demo because I'm going to do this really quick.
Oh, it's okay. Do you prefer working with a mouse or a normal pen tablet?
Yes. It depends on my mood. Right now, I'm actually using a mouse. And the trick that I'm doing, for instance, with the line tool here, I'm going to come over and grab the line. I can hold down the letter O on my keyboard and click and drag out to get a larger brush, or bring it to the left to get a smaller brush. And what I want to do is I can pull this line here, and on my keyboard, I'm on a Mac, so I can hold down my Command key and then bend this line a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Go to this other part. From here, still holding down my mouse. Then hold down Command again and bend this line. And right now, those are kind of connected. Yes. Not perfect, but this is a vector, so I'm working in Bezier curve. So snapping turned on? Yes, it is. Right. Turn it off a little bit. So the idea is once I've done this, I can use a different tool, the pencil editor, and I can come in and thicken parts of this out. So even though it's still
it's much easier than Illustrator. Because Illustrator you have to expand and redo. I have knowledge of vector. I do vector art sometimes. Illustrator can be a little bit tedious sometimes, but this one Harmony is at least it looks like it's a little more intuitive. It's easier
it can
to
be. It can be. Okay. So let's say that is that aspect. And then I'll do the same thing for the bottom part of the eye here. Let me press the letter K to see where that, again, that's still that little line down the middle. And I want to make sure I have a closed off shape here. So let me go back. My line tool, yes. Dude, where's your magnet? There it is. Turn on my snapping. So come up here, click and drag this bottom part, hold down my Command key, that's Control on PC.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it, hold on, let's try it again. I forgot the one rule. Let go of the mouse, then let go of the keyboard. Okay, let's come over here. Okay, that's not bad. Wait a minute, there's still an open gap there, is that? I'm zooming way in because I don't want any holes in this.
Another thing that I realize is that when, for example, this is one of the parts of the production. If I have, it would be easier if I send you a vector art, or you prefer like this, you doing the vector.
Yes and no. Like usually if it's in vector, like if people are working in Illustrator, I would probably, yeah, because when you're working in Illustrator, if you sent it over, I would probably open it up in Illustrator. You have to save it in an earlier version, and that way I can actually build it out. The one tricky part is when working with some illustrators, especially if they're not familiar with animation, they're going to send you everything flat anyway. So you got to go up and start dividing it and placing it in different places because they don't think like,
And
let me place this in this
because
layer.
with After Effects, I would be sending you a PSD file with the inking line for the eye, the inside of the eye, the iris, everything separate, including the catch lights.
Yes.
Because After it's a little bit is similar. I have a really basic knowledge of After, but you have to do separate. It's since Toon Boom, Harmony, and Adobe are not from the same owner, sometimes the programs do not communicate very well, I believe. So you said that you have to save in an earlier version of Adobe Illustrator.
Right. I think it's because of the type of PDF that it has. All right, so that's part of this. Let me grab, so that's let me press the letter K. I have that closed off, that's good. Let me also grab my ellipse tool.
This would be a job of the cleanup department, right?
Probably the person doing rigging. They would come in and probably and feel free to change this, correct me in the comments. But I think this is all part of rigging because a lot of times what we happens, because even when I train people in Harmony, we get this like flat JPEG and go, okay, cool. How do you put this together? And sometimes it is a vector. It's like, okay, well, how do you cut this up and put it together? So I'm going to hold down my Option and Shift. That way I'm actually dragging from the center there. Is snapping still on, dude? Sometimes I need it on, sometimes I need it off. That, and let me make a smaller, just hold on my O key, make it a little bit smaller. So I'm kind of guesstimating where the center of the pupil is, holding my Option, Alt on PC, and Shift. Looks good there. I can click here. It's only recent that Toon Boom added a paste in place, because literally if I copy this and paste it on a different layer, it'll automatically paste in place. But if I copy, let me zoom in here. If I copy here and paste, it does it, it's down 10 pixels, over 10 pixels. So it's like up, over.
It's a little bit offset.
Yes, not like those other programs that are just kind of paste it wherever. So, but yeah, they did actually just add in, I can probably do Command Shift V to do a paste in place. So this is going to be my eye. Let me grab another circle. I'm a huge fan of working black and white first. It's that whole bake the cake first, frost it later.
Okay. Colors are always are the last thing you work around. But
definitely.
Yeah, but it's for example, you have to follow after you finish. You have to follow the colors I chose, because it would be off model if you went to with a different color. But for example, I placed a gradient inside of her iris.
Yes,
that you have to follow that gradient. And I know that is a little bit new, but I'm seeing more and more cartoons using more gradient effects because it became much easier to use. But I believe it's a little bit hard to do for animation to make the gradient consistent. I think Harmony helps because it is a puppet, so it's much easier, I believe so, to keep consistent. But sometimes, for example, hair is much more fluid, and eye, it's more stable, so to say.
One second. I
I
can
think
tell you, I can tell you one thing though. Speaking of that, speaking of going from, if you were to send me this in Illustrator and you already had a gradient in the eye, when I imported it in, that's the one thing that Harmony would do. I think it would switch it over to like a bitmap. Like, and it's like, instead of like, you almost have to build the vector in here, or excuse me, build the gradient inside of here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that Harmony is a little bit more user friendly. I'm seeing you working around. It's really more user friendly, and this is coming from someone that has difficulty with certain programs because it is not user friendly. I like Clip Studio Paint, but they are extremely hard to find the things in the program. You want a pencil. The shortcut is the same for 3 different tools in Clip Studio Paint. It's like, why? That's why I enjoy using Photoshop more, because it's easier to find things. Because it thinks that I don't know the logic of Clip Studio Paint. I like to use it because it has a lot of tools and so on, but it's so hard to find. It's so hard to find everything. And I'm looking, the interface of Harmony looks really user-friendly, at least for me, that is a novice, doesn't know much about it. It looks even more friendly than After Effects. After Effects is another program that has hidden shortcuts to everything.
Yeah, it does. Do you work in After Effects at all? Or are you...
I did have some classes, because sometimes when you do some storyboards, they want you to do the animatic too. But I came to the conclusion while taking classes that I wasn't going to do so. I was going to be completely lost, because the program is not user friendly. I talked with my dad. He also complains that After Effects is not that easy to use, and because it's not intuitive, it's really hard to find things. Like Clip Studio Paint, you want the edit tool to size. It's not in the same box. You have to click and hold. I know they'll probably have more shortcuts, but I think sometimes when people create these programs, they are so inside their bubble that they forget about the user that's going to use after. Like, I
would have to agree with that. I definitely agree with that. And shout out to my Toon Boom family. Love y'all. Sometimes they'll do stuff and I'll go like, okay, why did you do it that way? Can we make it a little simpler? So yeah, it gets tricky sometimes.
And when a program is not that user-friendly, it can be scary. It can turn people off to try explore it easily. Because, for example, I use Monvavi for editing small videos for my TikTok and YouTube. Sometimes it's much easier. It grabs the basic things on After Effects, but it's much easier to find. It's much user-friendly. I think people should think about the user sometimes because we are the ones that are going to use it. I know that not everybody has to be a professional. Some people can use it as a hobby, but you have to have a recipe to follow. You can't make it overly complicated.
Agreed. All right. Now, I'm going to do a couple of things here. One, I've actually drawn this out to the pieces that I need. If I were really going to push this, I would probably place my the top lash on a totally separate layer, but I'm going to keep this really simple today. And we're just going to have it so we're going to basically have the eye shape and then the iris. So one, I'm going to just come down here to my layer. I'm going to change the name, just call this, I don't know, which one is this one? You don't say right and left, you say front and back. Some people do 1 and 2. Anyway, so this is my left. We'll call this front. So we'll call this the one, the front eye.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I'm using underscores because there are no spaces in Harmony, because it's a database the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do now is I'm going to do the thing that scares a lot of people about working with the program, and that is the node view. Like I've been doing everything in layers here. So I have the original artwork, which I should probably lock. That's there. And then I have all of this on one layer. So I'm going to come over here and open up my node view.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, you say, hey, there's there's drawing. This looks red because that layer is turned off. And then there's the original drawing. These are all coming into what's called the composite. So if I disconnect one of these, that's gone away. That drawing's not there. So, or if I press the letter D for disable or disappear, as I like to say, it turns that off. Press the letter A, enable, or appear. So disappear, appear. Anyway, so what I want to do here with this eye, I'm going to create a separate little composites. So we don't have, when you're building out a character, you're going to end up with like the eyes, the mouth, and all these different things. This character would probably have multiple pieces for the hair. So instead of having all of them fit into the main composite, we're going to make a little sub one here. So I'm going to do, is it Control H? Thank you.
By the way, if you want for people to use this drawing for future classes, you can. I am okay with that.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet.
If you want to give it to your students or everybody that is watching here, you can make it available for them if they want to use it for training.
Thank you so much.
I think I did manage to make something a little bit cleaner for people to use. So I tried to make something, because usually I work alone. It's the sad part of being an artist. Sometimes you freelance artists, you sometimes work alone, and your organization is everything. I learned that in college. I went to a design college, so one of my teachers, you have to remember that people will see your other people will catch your files.
Yes.
If you're not organized, they are going to hate you forever.
Speaking of, that's definitely something that people get in trouble with in Harmony, because they'll do stuff like everything is like stacked on top of each other, and it's like, does it work? Yes, but are your people going to be yelling at you? Yes, because I have no idea what's going on here. So yeah, let me clean this up a bit. Now I want to make a couple of things. There's the eye, but I'm going to make another layer for is it the iris? I don't know. I like to say eyeball, but this part is the big circle part. I'm going to make another layer for that. And one thing I didn't draw out, I am going to make one for the eyebrow. So I'm going to make another layer. So I'm inside of the node view. I can just do Command R, and I will say, oh yeah, front. Is it iris? I think it's iris.
It's iris.
Okay.
No, so I think it's pupil.
No, wouldn't pupil be the black part in the middle?
I have no idea. I just draw and make it pretty.
I was calling it eyeball for the longest time, and then one of my classes, well, actually, it's called this. I'm like, dag nabbit, I'm trying to be cute here. So we'll do iris. Okay. I'll do another one, and I also need to do the front eyebrow.
The problem being international is sometimes it comes the word in Portuguese for me first, and then I have to remember what the English equivalent it is, because sometimes it's not even the same sounding words.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the bad thing that when you are bilingual, you have to learn, because sometimes I can end up speaking in Portuguese and you have no idea what I'm talking. So
I have to be careful.
I'm sorry, speak in English. I'm really used to speaking English, so it's not a much problem. But I do have some friends that have a little bit of difficulty to doing job interviews. It's another perspective, right? People sometimes forget that not everybody was born in an English-speaking country.
My
So
hardest thing is as a teacher, I have to be really careful because I do teach internationally. So I have to be careful and make sure I call things by their exact names. And then I will sometimes speak because I'm kind of very loose when I teach. So I'll say things like dude or campers. Like, hey, campers, this is what we're going to do next. So it's like, and people are like, wait, what is that? And I was like, all right, sorry. So there's all these little technical things like the fact that this little thing here isn't a thread or a line. It's called a cable.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I know that's because there's an actual cable cutter up here because I was calling it everything else before then. Okay. So right now, if you look on my timeline, this is already looking a little bit weird. Well, not weird, but different. It's feeding in there. But we don't see the eyebrow or the iris. That's because they're not connected. So let's connect that one in there, even though it's blank. There it is. And we'll connect the eyebrow. So they're all in there. You can see that there's nothing here yet.
Mm-hmm.
So because the light table is on, I'm selecting these other layers. So you see even the lines we drew initially, they're kind of faded back. Let's go back over here. And I need to grab, let's grab Mr. Selection Tool. Thank you. Let's grab that, hold down Shift. Hold on. Where's my mouse pose? Is it not on? Hold that thought. Mouse pose. I normally have, should have turned it on earlier. Okay. I have, now it's on, but I have things that actually show what keys I'm pressing. Let's hold on Shift. Let's select more than one. Get our little reflections. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. I can cut this, Command X, Control X on PC. And if I go to the iris layer, I don't have to do a paste in place because it's a different layer. Just a normal paste is going to put it right where it needs to be.
It's much easier.
Yeah. I was like, that alone was just like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. Okay, eyebrow, let's come over here. I can probably get away with one line, I think. Let's grab Mr. Line Tool. Thank you. Click here, come over here, hold on my Command key, and yeah, pretty close. We'll leave it there. I think I do want to thicken that a little bit in the middle. By the way, if my scroll wheel can zoom in and out, and depending on where you place your cursor, that's where it goes. So kind of pretty cool.
Can you import Photoshop brushes?
Brushes, no. Layers, yes.
Oh, so you have to create a new brush set for Harmony.
Yes.
That would look similar to for example, this one I used, it barely has a texture. It's a little bit textured, but it's almost solid. So it's okay. It's becoming, I thought about that too. I'm going to use one with full of texture, but I believe sometimes it can be difficult to replicate the texture in Harmony.
My favorite texture, to be totally honest, if I was going to do this, for instance, I'm going to make the hair here. Not that we're going to use it. I'm just going to do this as a quick little demo because it looks cool as hell. My favorite texture to use in Harmony is called, wait a minute. Where are my textures? Oh yeah, go to the pencil tool. Selection tool, sorry. Okay, my favorite one is called Grain because it looks like it's a freaking pencil. It's so nice, and it's still vector.
It's like Illustrator too. Illustrator brushes also are many vector. Come to think of it, maybe some Illustrator brushes can be imported into Harmony sometimes because it's the same principle. It would be rather nice if it was possible.
To the best of my knowledge, and I could be wrong, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think you can do it that way. There are some ways when you build out, when you do build outs, I want to say bitmapped brushes. Some of those, I think you can kind of build them the same way. But yeah. All right.
It's because, for example, you can import a Photoshop brush into Clip Studio Paint. You can import brushes into Procreate. Not the other way around. I still hope that someday Clip Studio will allow for Photoshop to upload some brushes they have that it's not on Photoshop. But anyway, it's something that artists like to do, and sometimes, for example, I designed this character. I could have went flat design or a different line work.
Right.
But now I have this knowledge that the Harmony has a little bit of limitations with texture, because you have to create from zero if you want a certain texture, a center aspect.
Yeah, you do. I mean, or at least you have to create it here. And this is one of the other reasons I think whenever is great. I've been teaching over 2 decades now. And one of the problems I always have is when I first start teaching, people go, "Hey, can you bring in stuff from Photoshop or Illustrator?" I go, "Yes, but I'm not going to show you that until week 3." So it's like trying to get people into the program first. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup on the iris here, because if you notice, I just kind of drew these here. I'm going to grab a cutter tool, not to be confused with the cutter node, which we will talk about later. The cutter tool allows me to do the following. I can go click and just pull that little line out.
Oh, it's much easier. In Illustrator, you have to go manually and cut the lines.
All right, so that's there. And the other thing I want to do, let's go to Mr. Color. By the way, it's a French-Canadian company, so Color has a U. I do want to go over here.
I learned British. I learned British English. Cool. So I'm also Color with a U. Sometimes one of my friends said, "Oh, you sometimes speak with a slightly British accent." It's because I learned British English. So it's funny. When I went to Canada, nobody was able to know where I was from, to be honest. They were like, they thought that they most thought that I was from Europe. And when I said that I was from Brazil, they go like, "Oh, impossible. Your English is way too good." I know many people go to study English and go to exchange programs to learn. So you have to be patient. I went to study at BCIT for a short workshop in animation, in their animation department. I learned a few things, but everything was 3D and extremely confusing. But I was the one who did the storyboard for the group, so it's okay. I still was useful. It was a really nice experience. We visited some studios too. We visited EA. It was in Vancouver. It's been 10 years already. If anyone is listening, guys, try to do a little bit, try to find, if you can go to an exchange program if you can, because it's nice. If you have some classes, I know with the pandemic, we kind of forgot that this type of thing exists, but it's nice. And if you ever come to Brazil, and if you want to visit more animation studios, sadly, I think it's really sad because we are a large country. Most studios are in my city. They are in São Paulo, then in Rio, and in Curitiba. But some are now going to Bahia and others. But the country is so big, and we surely should have more studios here to create new things. But thankfully, we can work remote this time. We have the internet, so it can work remote.
Loving that.
Just a little side, because people sometimes forget that animation studios are everywhere, not just the United States and Japan or Canada. So sometimes it's something I notice looking for jobs and so on, that sometimes they kind of forget that we have a solid industry here that sometimes we have to work around. I think it's a little bit difficult for people to open up, to be honest, to working from people from the outside, more international people that are not just from Europe. Like, I think that it's something nice this past 5 years is we are having more animation studios from Africa, actually.
Mm.
They released, I believe it was earlier this year, there's a new show on Disney Plus that was made from an African studio. I just don't know where the country is, but there are different places.
All right. Now, what I've been doing is playing with new colors here, and I'll show you this real quick. Like if I wanted to, let's say do the hair color, I can come over here, click plus to add a new color, double click, and I'll click the eyedropper. I have to click and drag and then point to the hair. And then I'll call this something complicated like hair. I also did do a gradient for the iris. So let me show that really quick. Back up. So,
but you're going to remove the lines, right? Because
I am. I put those back in for a reason, and I'll show you what in a second. Why in a second? Because I thought about the way I wanted to do the little glare here. So I'm gonna duplicate this white here. Drop my transparency there at alpha. Let's do 120. All of the colors, of course, are dynamic. So if I change this later, it'll update. Now, in theory, what I want to do when you're working in Harmony, these little things over here, you have technically 4 sub-layers for everything. So even though I'm working on, make sure I'm on the right layer. Cool. All right. So even though I'm here on the iris layer, I can click on this one and this one. This is why I took the lines off for a second. Let me copy those. Go to overlay. Now it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing here, but like line art, color art, underlay. So these are sub layers here. So I can paste that there. And what I want to do, I'm doing this a really lazy way, but I'm going to fill this in. The colors, or pretty much all of our tools here, it's like Option I for the paint tool. And it's like Option / for the pencil. I kept wondering, why are you doing Option all the time? The reason is, if I'm on the selection tool, if I temporarily want to get the paint tool, I only have to press the letter I. Fill that in. And let me get rid of the actual outline. Thank you. Come back down to line art. And now I'll go ahead and where's Mr. Cutter tool? Get you out of there. And get rid of the actual circle. Wait, I know the answer to this. I know better than that. Sorry. Trying to talk and work at the same time is tricky sometimes. Anyway, zoom out. Let me fill in the pupil. Thank you. And the iris. Where is Mr. Gradient tool? I know this. Adjust gradient. Nope, there. Thank you. Rotate. Yes. Cool. Can you get rid of those outlines? At least that one. Go bye-bye. Cool. Go back to camera view. That is what we have. Now, what I need to do, let's go back to our node view. Mr. I. On the I, what I need to do is I'm also going to be playing with the different layers here. But in traditional animation, you would paint the outlines on one part of the acetate, then you'd flip it over. And let me move this guy to the front so you can see a little bit better there. Thank you. You would flip it over and then paint the white or the fill color on the other side. So we can do that here. If I press the letter K, you can kind of see where my outlines are. Now, what I want to do is I have, quit it, I have this layer, and I'm going to copy the information, the vector information, not the color, but I'll copy this from the line art to the color art layer. So just click this little button. And in theory, yep. So this is the color art layer. There's a line art. So just grab the vector information, not the color part of that. And what I can do here, dude, you need an eye white officially. So I can always update that color later. Call that eye white. Great. Hold on, eye, fill you in. Thank you. Go back to my camera view. Get back to the line art layer. Now, the reason that the other part disappeared is I moved our eye.
You're going to make a clipping mask for
Mhm.
the side part.
Yes. So the way that works is we have something called, well, man, let me, before I finish this, I have to add the ability for each layer to move. So grab each one of these and I'll do I know the answer to this, peg, Command Shift P. So each one of these, it's kind of like having a, well, if you're familiar with After Effects, it's almost like a null object. But in traditional animation, if you want pieces to move around, the art itself doesn't move. You actually move the peg. So that way the artwork's still in the original place if you want to reset. So eyebrow, thank you. Let me adjust where that pivot point is going to be. I think place it at the end. Iris, quit it. Iris, easy enough. Place that there. And for the eye, typically we'll move that here. All right. Now I'm not, like I said, I'm not going too heavy into this, but I at least needed to do that so we can have something to control. When I'm teaching, I talk about the original artwork. This is our main floor. Our pegs that control the artwork, that's our attic. Now we got to do some stuff with the basement, as in how do we do that clip? So I'm going to bring up a tool, hit my return key or enter on PC. I'm going to type in cut. This is called the cutter. This is the cutter node, different from the cutter tool. The cutter node, notice it has that little mask there. Calls it a mat. But what I'm trying to cut is the iris. So I'm going to hold on my Alt or Option key, pull that into there. And what needs to cut it? Not the eye, because if I do the eye, one that looks really weird, that's, let me turn this off first. Where's my original drawing? Okay, that looks kind of weird. We want the opposite of that, so double click. I can tell us to invert, or easy way is the mask, simply double click on it. And yeah, that's not quite what we want. So what I do want, let's pull this out of here. One, I can't even see the rest of the eye. Put that back in there. Great. And instead of the entire eye, what I need is just the eye white. So I can pull up another node for the color. Where are you? Ah, there you are. Color art. So I'll pull another cable here. So another part of this for the color. And this gets fed into the mat. All right. So let me turn off this little guy here. I know better. It's like, dude, what the heck is with that? Let's work on that, shall we? Let's bring up another little node here for the line art. Thank you. Pull it in. Quit it. Let go. Okay, line art's over here. So we'll pull a third little guy. This is also why we actually needed its own little composite, because it can get tricky. Line art is here. Can we put that in front of everyone? Thank you. So there is that little eye. Let me turn on our original artwork. And why did we do all of that? The reason is I can click on our iris now and have that go wherever I want it to go. Now I could set it up where the little glints here are actually on their own little layer and don't move at all. But it's kind of playing around with this. And I know one thing I want to do, let me update that color. That glare is almost too translucent. I don't know if it works or not. I think I'll do one little sneaky trick here. Go to my node view, go to the iris, thank you. Right tool, overlay, thank you. Sorry. There we are. Copy, paste in front, zoom in, thank you. Copy, command, paste in front, and make that a little bit smaller. Okay, that works a little better. But yeah, that is just playing around with that part of it. I could also, and this is one of the things that, one of the many things that's not in the other versions of the program. If we had more time, I'd actually do it to the eyelash, but I'll do it here. We'll add a deformer to the eyebrow. So I can click and pull in about a third of the way here. Click here and pull in about a third of the way. And that way, I have the ability to kind of bend that around or kind of go there for one. But yeah, not too crazy. Well, Susanna, thank you again for joining me, and thank you for the artwork.
Thank you. And the artwork can be used to everybody if everyone wants to use it to train around with this little character. Go ahead. Just remember to give credit if you do, because if you upload, it would be really nice to see if anyone wants to animate it. Would be really nice to know and see my work animated, because it's fun. It's a always give credit to where it came from. That's what I'm saying.
Please do, and please do that with everyone. It's just like, come on, give the credit where credit's due.
It's much easier.
We're going to sign off.
Thank you for having me.
Always.
Thank you, everybody. I hope I was able to give a little bit of information about myself and a little bit about my work while I am relearning how to deal with my work, watching Team Tony work.
All right. I'm going to sign off now. Have a good one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Alrighty. So, hey, this is Tony Ross coming back. Thanks again to Susanna Rodriguez for joining us. And we're about to dive into Tony White's interview. And I'm going to, this is actually something, if you look on the screen, this is one of Tony, I think if you ever, whenever he does like walk cycles and things like that, this is a character that Tony works on. I'm going to be building this out as a rigged puppet in Harmony because, shameless plug, sort of. I mentioned before that we're trying to fund the Drawtastic app. So imagine 2D animation or animation education, past, present, and future, being housed in this one app. One of the rewards that we're doing off of Indiegogo is Tony White and I are actually doing a joint class, as he calls it, the two-tone class. But we're going to be doing a walk cycle. So He's going to be showing to the traditional ways of doing things. I'm going to be showing my shortcuts and hacks, and then he's going to be working and critiquing it. It's going to be like this hybrid, part live, part recorded, but it's not a class that's offered anywhere else. So you get a little bit of old school, a little bit of new school, and just really pushing the idea of a walk cycle. Walk cycles are, good grief, jobs are won and lost off of the ability or inability to do a walk cycle. So anyway, I'm going to do this quick little commercial, and then we'll dive right into checking out Tony White's interview. Did you know that one of the first books on learning 2D animation, The Animator's Workbook by Tony White, is no longer in print? It's actually one of the first animation books that I've ever purchased, and I still use it to this day. Even though this book is out of print, you can still get a copy. Tony White is currently running a crowdfunding campaign for his new animation education app, Drawtastic. So, you can get a digital copy of the Animator's Workbook for a small donation of $10. Grab a piece of history and bring to life the past, present, and future of animation by helping to fund the Drawtastic app. Pledge now at igg.me/@/Drawtastic. Hey, this is Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit, and I am hanging out with my good friend, mentor. He hates that I call him a living legend. I think one year you referred to yourself as the old wrinkly in the corner, but we all refer to you as the new old man of animation, Mr. Tony White, sir.
Okay, I'll buy that one. Thanks, Tony. Hi, everyone.
How's it going, man?
All right, busy. Not paid for busy, but busy. I've got to a stage in my life, obviously, where I can pick and choose. Not financially. I'm not financially free enough to do that, really. But I do, because if I've got time, I'm so passionate about what I do. It's like my vacation too, So I always find work for myself. And I guess I'm a confirmed workaholic, but it's always for good things, I think.
Definitely. So in a nutshell, for those of you who don't know, I almost want to make you go Google it, but Tony White animator, who exactly are you, sir?
Okay, well, I probably should Google it myself, because who knows what people were saying about me out there. Probably is a good exercise to do that. But in a nutshell, I am a veteran, 50-odd years of doing animation, traditional hand-drawn animation. I'm passionate about it. I've tried 3D, I've tried digital rigged characters. It's all interesting to me, but it's not so organic. So I'm an artist, and what I call an artist animator. I like to draw everything I do. And then I'll, of course, take it into the computer and everything. But I've been around for 50 years, for better or worse. I studied, indeed, I was the apprentice of Richard Williams when I first started my career in on the animation side. I was his apprentice for 18 months, and then I director animator for him in London for another 5 years. Then I set up my own studio for 20 years. We won lots of awards. I've done over 200 TV commercials, 2 TV specials, several short films. And way back when I was actually a young man, I was totally responsible for the title sequence of The Pink Panther Strikes Again. And in 98, I closed down my studio in London. Even though we'd won awards and done all that, I could never get funding for movies, which is what I really wanted to do. I wanted to make my own movies. So I basically got on a plane and came to America and sat it out here for 2.5 years, wrote a book while I was doing it. And at the end of that period, I started talking to investors who were very interested in my movie ideas and everything. It was going very, very nicely until in 2002, Michael Eisner, in his infinite wisdom, closed down the hand-drawn 2D animation studio at Disney, shamefully. And basically everything died overnight. Everything in 2D died overnight. And so I was stranded here, and I had no plan B. But plan B ended up me teaching and then working in my spare time on my own projects, still with the belief that one day I will make that movie that I want to make. So in a nutshell, that's me.
Loving it.
And wrote some books along the way. I should have said
just a few books, yes.
Just a few.
It's like it's that was one of my first introductions to you, is checking out from the library the animator's workbook, checking it out enough times, and then finally owning it. And I remember years ago, I don't even know if you remember this, but I was at the time I was teaching Flash, and I was doing the thing of reaching out and saying, okay, well, what questions, if I said I'm about to build up this new course, what kind of questions would you have? And so people were chiming in and leaving their email addresses. And I saw your email address, and I was like, why do I know that name? And then I saw the illustration next to your name. I was like, okay, I know that illustration. And so I Googled it and I'm looking up, like, no way. So yeah, it was kind of and as to talk up, Mark Simon always makes fun of me. I am like unashamedly a fanboy when it comes to a lot of people I have on the summit. You are definitely one of those people. So I have to try to talk to you and not gush at the same time. Always a privilege and an honor to get to chat with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to hit you up with a couple of questions, and then I also want to talk about the ongoing project that I'm working on with you. But before we get there, I wanted to run a question by you. In your opinion, what is the biggest misconception that it comes to what's the biggest misconception you think it is for people when it comes to 2D animation?
The modern misconception, I would absolutely say, is that if you understand software, you're a 2D animator, and it's not at all true. Software is a tool, but like a pencil, it's a tool, and it's what you bring into it that makes it special. It's not the tool you use. So it doesn't matter what tool you use, but the real truth of 2D animation is the truth that was taught to me by our elders, our amazing elders from the industry way, way back, that you've got to understand the core principles of movement. And it doesn't matter if you draw them or you rig them and move them or you 3D, animate them. If you don't have those core principles of movement in your mind, in your experience, and you're able to reproduce them, whatever animation you do, it's not going to be very good. And the modern misconception, and it's made popular by the manufacturers, of course, it's implied, it's not said outright, but if you have this software, you can animate anything. And it's not at all true. You can make things move, absolutely. And some people are natural and gifted at movement, and are natural and gifted at design, and they come up with incredible images and they make a move, and a lot of it is passed for animation. I cringe when I watch TV, or I cringe when I go on to Instagram or Facebook, or I rarely go on TikTok anymore, but any of those, and I look at what they call animation, and I can see that there's a technical expertise to it, but there's nothing really beneath the surface in terms of movement, personality, emotion, anything like that. And I find it particularly frustrating when I see movies, indie movies. I don't watch mainstream anymore. I can't stand the Hollywood approach to filmmaking, but anymore. But when I see a good indie movie and I really love it, and I really think the design, the story, and everything is great, And then I see how things move, and I think, if only you could have done, just change that key just a little bit like that, the next key just a little bit like, and that whole movement would be absolutely aced, So I've gone on a tangent a bit, but really, yeah, I think the whole thing is based on the modern myth that, yeah, if you learn the software, you can be an animator. And yes, you can be an animator, but you've got to have a lot more credentials that you bring to the software before you become, that master animator, if you like. These days, there's not much discrimination at the lower end of the industry on how well things move. Just get it moving. I don't care if it's moving, we'll get it out there, whether it's TV or video games or whatever. It's a pity. And I once said to a leading games person who I respected a lot, and I respect people in games and all that, I said, who are your 9 old men of animation in games industry? Who are they? And they said, we don't have anything like that, I don't know. I said, well, who's your number one animator? Who would you hire number one? I don't know, because we just get it done, in games. Wow. As long as it moves, it's okay. And I kind of lost interest at that point, not in the person. I never lose interest in people, but in that philosophy that, oh, yeah, we just make it move and it's okay. And from my perspective, coming from some legends who taught me, it's really not okay, but I understand the modern pressures of time, money, bosses, employers, suits. They put enormous pressures on people, so people have to do it fast and shit. But if you're ever working on your own, you really need to put more into it than just operate software. Is that a wrong answer or right answer?
No, I heavily agree with you. And what I think about, and I am guilty of this. I was talking about, I have several colleagues of mine that are putting out their own thing and they're like, I'm going to do this thing. I said, yes. And that might take a while. And I'm trying to grab funding for it. I'm trying to do this. And I will say, meanwhile, there's this person or this particular group that's doing little stick figures, pretty much. They're not even moving that much, but their audience is huge. Yeah. So I normally am going, do something, get it out there quick. so get an audience, get a following, and get that. To that end, I will say what was interesting for me, and I'm gonna say it, I don't normally call out show names, especially when I'm talking to you. Especially when I'm talking to you, but it's because I might say a name and you're like, oh, that's rubbish. But anyway, hear me out. I was watching, one of my favorite shows to watch was Peppa Pig. There's the little show. And what I loved about it was there was really stupid, basic shapes, but I'm watching, and they weren't just swapping out mouths. Like you're looking, there's a nice squash and stretch going on when they're talking. And there's a little subtle things that they were doing with the characters. I'm going like, they actually put some time into this. This is kind of cool, because they could easily cheated it and said, oh, it's for a kid's show. Yeah. But I'm watching it going, I see what you did there. That was kind of cool. But there's like these nice little things occasionally. I think my pet peeve, though, is still that when people don't play, just kind of when they ignore a lot of stuff, which is one of the reasons why I when people go like, Tony, you're an animator, right? And it's like, I'm a trainer or a hack. I know how to animate, but I don't consider myself an animator. It's like, if you ask me, if you said, Tony, I'll give you $1,000 right now if you can name the 12 principles, I'm like, give me a second. Okay, so here's my other question for you.
All right, can I just jump in there, by the way? You mentioned Peppa Pig. I didn't know you were going to mention Peppa Pig. One of the co-creators is a guy called Neville. He actually worked for me when I had my studio in London. He trained as an assistant there. So if there's any merit in the animation that you're saying, I had a little part in that, but not a lot. I mean, because his whole journey is his journey, and but he worked for quite a while with me as an assistant on commercials. And I tried to train everyone. At one point, I closed my studio down when we were working on a bigger production. I closed it down every Friday and did master classes, and they did homework and everything. So everyone had a chance to learn animation and the animation principles. And then they all went their own separate ways. And I'm sure Neville's like 10 times richer than I am right now with the success of Peppa Pig. And I'm still talking about doing animation, So, but anyway, second question.
And that was cool and did not know. We have to talk more about that. My second question, what genre in 2D animation do we need to see a lot more of?
I'm totally biased, but hand-drawn animation, but it's unlikely to happen. And I tell you what, and there's certain, I should clarify that it's not going to happen in the US. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
Because there's no encouragement for it to happen in the US. In fact, 2D is not anymore the domain of the US. It really is the rest of the world doing interesting and exciting things. And the rest of the world still has a kind of tradition of hand-drawn. And if you go to places like Japan, obviously with Miyazaki and everything, it's totally, there's totally a career path there if you want it. But in the US, not. But I'd like to see. But hand-drawn, there's a myth about hand-drawn that's put out by modern studios, let's say big studios in Burbank, California. The hand-drawn animation is way too expensive to make anymore. And that's absolutely a fallacy. Absolutely. I could make a really well-made 2D hand-drawn animated film for, say, $15 million. Really, I could do that. And it would be good quality, not the best, not Disney in the golden era, but a really good quality animated feature film for $15 million. And I'd have people who would appreciate working on it because they want to do the same thing as I do. And that's in a context of a world where we talk about $100 million, $200 million for an animated movie. Tell me where it's more expensive. Tell me where that is. And tell me where it's better to go totally 3D and never do a 2D, because 2D has certain qualities that none of the others have. Bottom line with animated movies anyway, it's all the story. And regardless of how you make that story work in animation, the story is all important. But if the story is suitable for hand-drawn animation, I really think we need to give that a chance. The Europeans do it. Asia does it. So even there's a degree of it in Australia, India for sure. Why not the USA? The USA led the world way back in hand-drawn 2D animation. Nobody was even close. And now it's not even in the game anymore. So ask me why that is. And when they tell you, oh, it's too expensive, they're wrong. They're totally wrong.
Okay. It's a definite thing I've noticed, especially with, as you said, with all the different other countries popping up. I keep seeing when something big keeps popping up because I think America loves to, I think our number one export is marketing or the spin we put on things. So it's like, I keep waiting for—
Very good at that. Number one in the world at that. Yeah,
definitely. I keep waiting for this one movie that someone else puts out, and I keep waiting for America to go, oh, wait, we can actually do that too. Let's do that. I was hoping that was going to happen with Klaus. It did not.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, it was like, man, I was like, surely someone. I had a question. Did you ever see, and I don't know if we talked about this before, did you ever see the animation? It was done for a game, but the game Cuphead.
Yeah.
They
reproduced that old Fleischer animation beautifully. I mean, in the context of the modern world and economics of the modern world and time pressures of the modern world, I think they did a great job with that. And it was refreshing. Wasn't it refreshing just to see something like that? I'm not a game player. I have to confess that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the gameplay is like, but just looking at it, it's so refreshing. And I thought that has got something that 1,000 other games doesn't have, just to look at it, you know?
I know.
And Michel Garnet did one as well. I can't remember the name of it now, but and apparently the gameplay is almost impossible to do, but it looks stunning. It absolutely is, you know. and it's possible.
One thing that was interesting about Cuphead, and because I saw I saw when they first started working on it, and they actually were doing the whole doing the whole hand drawn on paper and then scanning it in.
Yeah,
I was like, man, this looks gorgeous. And then when Netflix said, oh, by the way, we're going to do a Cuphead series, and I was like, how? Because I was like, how many corners are you going to cut? Do I even want to look at what's going to happen?
Right.
Because I'm thinking like, there's no way you're going to pull it off. It's not bad. I've watched an episode or two. It's not bad, but it's also not what the game was.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and I don't know if you ever want to Google this, and anyone listening Googles this, if you look up Cuphead boss fights on YouTube, and you'll see just the crazy, surreal nature that was that time period in that genre of what is it? Almost everything looking like it's on ones, and some of it I think it is on ones. So it's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. It's a pity somebody up there, and I don't know these people, with money and power and influence looked at that and said, I want to see that as a movie. And I want to see it as a really good movie as it would have been made back then, Right. I wish somebody like that existed, but they don't. And so what they do is what you say is they take a franchise and just screw with it so much that they cheapen it, make it nasty, cheap and nasty, get it out there. Let's hit the deadline. Let's take advantage of this 1 year window of opportunity to cash in on it. And then we'll dump it. Well, after we've trashed the legend of it, we'll dump it and move on and find out the next thing. And that's very true what goes on these days. It's very frustrating. Whereas Walt Disney, and I get onto my pet arguments here. Walt Disney, whatever you think of the man, his history and everything, the truth of the man, he was a genius. And he was a genius, and he was a business genius. He wasn't a businessman. His brother did all that. But he was a business genius, because what he did, the man went all in. When he made Snow White, he got to the point where he said, I'm not just getting this film finished. I want this to be a great film that will last for generations, because that's where we're going to make our money. Generations are still going to want to watch this film long after the deadline of opportunity of getting a movie out, distribute it, get the money, move on. He had 180 degrees to that. He said, no, we're not making this movie for the next distribution roundup. We're making this for generations in the future. And that's where our money, that's where our reputation, that's where we build the legend. And Roy would pull his hair out and said, but we can't afford that. And Walt would throw stuff out and redo it and throw it until he was happy it was right. And they mortgaged their houses, they sold their cars, they did everything to get that. And when Snow White was premiered in Hollywood, everyone came to laugh. If you check it out, everyone came to laugh, because they all said in that era, it was all short films. It was just short filler films to go in with the main feature films,
right.
Not animated features, but regular features, just entertainment throwaways. And Walt said, I'm going to make an animated movie. And they said, you can't do it. You cannot hold an audience for 80 minutes with drawings moving. You just can't do it. And Walt said, yeah. And he did it, and he blew them away. And apparently when the lights went up, they all came to laugh at him and dance on his grave. When the lights came up, there was all these moguls with cigars in their mouths and everything, with tears in their eyes. They were totally blown away by what he created. And that's because he went against the stream. And that's why I said, I wish Klaus was a perfect example, somebody doing something quality and different and moving forward. And where's the support for that? Where's their second film? Nothing to do with them. It's to do with the industry not supporting that. There's no one executive suit up there that says, that's amazing, I'm going to take that all the way it can go. And they're not doing it. And what they're doing, they're boring blockbusters. 1 in 10 make money, and the rest of them are just the same old, same old. Anyway, soapbox over. Next question.
Well,
I can go on another tangent with another question.
No worries, sir. I do want to talk about the project you're working on, then I was blessed that you
We're
asked,
working on. We're working on.
we're working on that you asked me to be a part of that, and thank
Yep.
you. Can you tell us about Drawtastic and what is Drawtastic?
Okay, so yeah, I'm very excited by this one because people who know me know that I've written lots of books and I do online classes and all this stuff. And my latest book, Animation Masterclass, it came out pretty recently, and it's been well received. And it's 800 pages thick. It was like, I thought, how can I pour my 50 years of experience of knowledge and teaching whatever techniques, how can I put it all in one book as my legacy? That's it. There's my book. And I did it. It's about 800 pages. But what I realized very soon after it came out was not that it was bad. There was nothing, I don't think there's anything bad in it. It's really, it does what I had set to achieve, but it doesn't communicate to younger generations in the way they're used to communicating. So I thought, okay, so what it needs is a 2D, I'm mainly focused on 2D animation, but trust me, what I teach in 2D applies to all forms of animation because it's about movement. It's not software technology, it's about movement. And wouldn't it be good to take all that stuff I put in my books and put everything I've done and put it into one phone app? And people could just tap on their phones and say, oh, I want to learn how to do a whole series. How do you do a sneak? And you can go on the app and you can find a course on there that teaches you about sneaks. How do you put a film together? There's a production course or a pre-production course. There's all kinds of things, resources on there. At the same time, because I tend to, in my own non-marketing way, because I'm not an American marketer, I'm an English, quiet, sitting in the background kind of guy, just like drawing. I run my own animation festival called the Drawtastic Animation Festival, and every year we give Golden Pencil Awards to the best category winners, mainly 2D, but not exclusively. And I thought, wouldn't that be great if we had our festival on the app as well? And what about I and a number of my contemporaries are rapidly dying off now. I don't want to go yet, but we're rapidly dying off. The reality is, and we hold knowledge, experience, and everything of 2D animation, especially cell animation, but 2D animation as it was done before the technology overwhelmed it all. Wouldn't it be great to have interviews with people like that and hear them talking about the old days and showing the techniques of the old days and just hearing their thoughts and everything? Wouldn't it be great to have that? So I see this app, Drawtastic is the app, Drawtastic with an exclamation mark on the end. There's a beta version available in the Apple Store right now, and there is any day, I keep saying this and they keep letting me down, any day it's going to be on Google Play as well. I'm just waiting for clear, it's in review and it's been in review for, I don't know what's going on. But anyway, soon you'll have a beta version of the app, which is just the really bare bones of what I see it as. But ultimately, I see Drawtastic as a digital university, museum, and screening room for everything 2D animation, especially the core principles. Not so much it's using technology. Let's put it like this: it's providing information, knowledge, experience, techniques, principles, and everything that people can take in any direction they want to go. And it's basically it's going to be preparing the animators of today and tomorrow when new technology evolves with all the information they need to carry into that technology. It's really going back to what we were saying at the beginning. It's what you bring to the computer, what you bring to the technology, which separates you from the rest, you know. And so the app is all about giving you everything that separates you from the rest. And then you can take it in any direction you like, in any technology, in any technique of animation you like. So that's what Drawtastic is about. So we've set up, as you know, we set up a Indiegogo campaign called Drawtastic with an exclamation mark at the end. And we're trying to raise funds for me to broaden out the beta version. The beta version is as far as I can take it right now. And I need a lot of help and I need a lot of time and I need to survive to bring new courses into it. We're also appealing for sponsors that might want to sponsor just a whole course, and we can create the course around that, put it in the app, and they can have their brand or name all the way through. Or if you're just a supporter of what I'm trying to do, or what is needed right now with the almost demise of traditional 2D animation, almost. If you want to support keeping that going, providing the animators of today and tomorrow with the skills, the techniques, and the knowledge of doing that in the future, then please support it on Indiegogo, because that's how I can build it. I just can't build it on I've only got so much time, and as I get older, my eyes fade, and I've only got so many hours on a computer and everything. So I need help. And that Indiegogo funding will help me do that. Does that sum it up, Tony? I think so.
It does sum it up, yes. And I feel like I'm doing one of the a PBS pledge drive. I'm like, oh, everyone who's listening. It's like, but yeah. On a serious note, definitely check out the Indiegogo campaign. We have some pretty cool things. Not to mention, one of the things we were talking about is how do we make sure that pretty much almost every single penny goes towards the project. We did a lot of the rewards, digital or their live action type things, as in one of the tiers is where Tony White and I will team teach something, and it's basically a walk cycle, where I'm showing a lot of my hacks and cheats on walk cycles, and Tony shows the basic principles of how you're supposed to truly do a walk cycle. And then that final thing of peanut butter meets chocolate or Reese's kind of thing, we get this, okay, here's how you can actually improve on this. Here's how you can actually change these keys. How do we get that beautiful combination and, I don't know, push that whole thing of a walk cycle. I've always said, whenever I teach this, I think jobs have been won and lost over the ability or inability to do a walk cycle. So,
yeah, and it's true, as I said earlier. If I look at TV, if I look at even movies, and definitely if I look at video games, I can see whoever animated that has no idea how to do a walk cycle. You know, even commercials. I see commercials, and I just. If only somebody picked up the phone and asked me, how do I fix this? I'd do it, because I hate seeing it. It just goes against the grain for me. But yes, and I'm really excited by us team teaching two-tone tutorials, I call it, you know, and I'm really excited by this opportunity, because basically the basic idea is me saying, this is what a generic walk looks like. Over to you, Tony. And then Tony will show you how to efficiently and cleverly, and in the software of choice, how do you make that work in that digital area? And then we can go back. Once you've got all the keys and everything set up, then I can come back again and say, okay, that's a generic walk. It's very mechanical, no personality, nothing. If it was a sneak, this is what you do. You just change that key and add one there, or if it's a double bounce, or if it's something else, if it's a military march, how do you do that? Just by changing keys. And that's why I get frustrated when I see big budget productions using rigged characters and they don't get the personality that could be there just by moving a key. So I hope this will be a demonstration. It'd be a great experience for us to work together. But I think it will be a really good experience in seeing that just by, once you know the foundations, the bottom rules, the foundational rules of doing a walk, it doesn't take much to get more personality and more effort and more other kinds of expression from that same setup, just by changing some keys and just changing a little bit of timing and everything. And I think together we can actually make a great presentation. I'm really excited by that one. And looking forward to that. But, you know, it's one of many perks that we hope to offer, but it's a good one. Yeah.
And this is going to sound, not that I'm telling you all not to pledge, but it's like, even if no one buys that perk, dude, we're doing the class anyway. Cause I've always wanted to pick your brain when it comes to that. Go, here's what I'm doing. And I'm waiting for you to go, yeah, let's add this here. So it's like, it's going to be really cool, I think. So
yeah. And that's what, we were talking before that we were recording, and I was saying what popped into my head today was the idea of doing a teaching course for teachers. That might be something that I could add to the app if I thought there was enough support for that, and we had the funds to do it. But actually teaching teachers, because most teachers don't have time to do really what we're talking about doing in our two-tone tutorial.
Right.
They don't have time to do that because they're pressured by the curriculum and the time they have and the students and whatever. But they don't have time to finesse those little keys and know how to do things. So the students don't get to know how to do movement well because the educator doesn't always know themselves. But they are paid to teach students that software in that amount of time. So they don't have time to do it. But wouldn't it be cool if they had a resource where they could just say, oh, okay, I could change that generic walk to a sneak just by doing that. And that would be a great course, I think, that I could just teach teachers how to do things. Anyway, it's not on there yet. That's not a proposal. But, there is a website that lists what I'm trying to do initially. There's going to be many more additions as it grows. There's going to be more and more additions added to it, but there's a list of courses and events and items that I'm trying to get into the app at this stage if we can get the funding to do it. And it's on the website, which is drawtastic.org.
Awesome. So everyone listening to this, whether you're listening to it during the summit or if you're catching this on YouTube later, because it is going to be an ongoing campaign, and because the initial amount we were going for, the initial amount I believe is $3,000. However, to do the full thing is actually about it's I can't remember the maybe about 5 times that amount total, but we at least want to start somewhere. So it's going to be a constant thing of putting in as much knowledge as we can, as well as even keeping the or paying the company that actually keeps that running every year.
Yeah.
So if everyone can actually either pledge, or even if you can't pledge, share this with as many people as possible. Anyone that you know that's going to be interested in this. Hey, and if you know people, any companies or corporations that want to dive in, that would be awesome. So we can actually do that whole thing of showing animation education, the past, present, as well as the future, and really put this thing out there, because I think it's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, because I'm concerned. I think it's really important. Somebody's got to do it of my generation. And, this is not a Tony White ego trip. This is really about 2D animation. In a way, it's a tribute to Richard Williams, my teacher, and some of the great elders of Disney and Warner Brothers animation I learned from. I owe it to them. I call it passing the pencil. They passed it to me. I feel I need to pass it on. The realistic way of doing it in this modern technical era is through a cell phone app. Anyone around the world can access it. And we need to, but we do need, as Tony indicated there, we need to make our 3,000 target for this to be an ongoing thing. Because I see this as an organic, it's just going to grow forever. If it can go, it's going to grow and go forever. But we can't keep it ongoing in the sense of Indiegogo or anything like that, unless we make our 3,000 target. So that's where we're kind of, not feeling an urgency, but really trying to encourage you to support it, because we think it, not me, it is going to be the foundation with this AI tsunami that's going to overwhelm us all eventually. We've got to dig our heels in and say this is a place where 2D was, is, and can be, even in this changing environment. But somebody's got to do it, and I really think now's the time. And I think it's absolutely right, better than all my books, to put this whole thing on a phone where you can access it anywhere in the world.
Excellent. Well, sir, as always, it has been a pleasure.
For me too.
I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. And again, just make sure you'll go check out that, and I'll pop the link in the description as well as on the screen. So this has been Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit, hanging out with Mr. Tony White. Say bye, Tony.
Bye, Tony.
Hey, this is Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit. We're in our 5th year of running the summit, and this year the summit is going to be from October 16th to the 20th. You can sign up for the summit at signup.animationsummit.net. This event is totally free. However, I do need your help with something. This year, to help with the cost of running the summit, we're selling some merchandise from t-shirts to mugs and a couple of other items. If you can get one of these, that would really help to fund the summit. It's not mandatory, but it does help. Now, if t-shirts or mugs aren't in your budget, no worries. You can also help by sharing links to sign up for the summit. So check out our summit merchandise at shop.animationsummit.net. We have some simple summit t-shirts and mugs, as well as some naughty and humorous ones. Thanks again, and I hope to see you at the summit. Did you know that one of the first books on learning 2D animation, The Animator's Workbook by Tony White, is no longer in print? It's actually one of the first animation books that I've ever purchased, and I still use it to this day. Even though this book is out of print, you can still get a copy. Tony White is currently running a crowdfunding campaign for his new animation education app, Drawtastic. So, you can get a digital copy of the Animator's Workbook for a small donation of $10. Grab a piece of history and bring to life the past, present, and future of animation by helping to fund the Drawtastic app. Pledge now at igg.me/@/Drawtastic. Alrighty, so thanks again to both Tony White as well as Susanna Rodriguez. Those are our first two entries. We are still figuring out some technical things. Hopefully we'll be able to add in some chats and comments onto our stream. We normally do this, but they've changed a lot of permissions and software, so I am jumping back and forth on I try to keep responding back and forth on YouTube as well as on Facebook. One thing I wanted to show you before we sign off for lunch, this is again me prepping and getting the puppet or the rig ready for my portion of the class. And to be clear, let me see if I can show you this. What I can tell you, again, the where you can actually donate for the little crowdfund. Let's see if I can find this. Okay, is igg.me/@/Drawtastic, and that is on Indiegogo. And what I want to share is, I'm going to go to, we're talking about the idea of the, there is one of the reward tiers is the class that Tony and I will be team teaching. One, just to be clear, if we were to price this class, it would not be $60. So it's like it's definitely worthwhile. I think it's limited to a certain amount of people. And where are we at last count? We're not quite even halfway, and we're already down to 20 days left on this. So if we have to get to that first $3,000 goal in order to keep it running on Indiegogo, because again, the overall goal is for us to reach, I believe it's around between 14 or 15K, which gives us pretty much the company that's handling not only creating the project, but keeping it running, and hosting and all the other technical things behind that, as well as the other back-end things like adding other additional courses and working with projects. So wanted to say that. By the way, John, I saw your point on the teachers. Yes, y'all would love that. Yes, that's one of the things that I try to specialize in. Like, my background isn't necessarily working in production, but it's in teaching, and especially teaching teachers. And when Tony mentioned the idea of that, I'm like, hell yeah, let's do that. So it's kind of a little cool thing. We gotta keep going there. Anyway, we're going to be breaking for lunch in a little bit here, but I wanted to show you again what I'm working on. For instance, if I decide to, let me rig this first leg and show how I would go about that. This would be technically the either front foot or something like that, or front leg. So if I change the name of this, I'll call it something complicated like F foot, and I'll add a couple of little things like F lower leg. And again, with Harmony, I'm working on the idea of, what is that called? Working with the idea that everything is a database, so we don't do spaces. I am doing underscores. So lower leg, upper leg, add and close. Great. Let me go into, again, that part that scares a lot of people. This is the node view. I'll be talking about it a little bit later, but there is a, for those of you who do have a fear of working in the node view and are interested, we do have a workshop. Where does that little guy go? Ah, there it is, foot. We do have a workshop coming up this Saturday coming up. It'll be from 9 a.m. to noon Eastern Standard Time. And the idea is I'll be rigging like a full character, but I did not mean to do that. Control H, thank you. Let's go front leg. It's making a little composite for this little guy. Front leg dash comp. All right. So the idea here is, I'm going to grab probably my line tool and zoom in, hold down my O key, and click and drag to get the size that I want. Not terrible. Okay. What size is that, by the way? Yeah, let's make it 16. And for colors, I am probably going to borrow Tony's color there. So double click, click and drag. By the way, in case you're wondering, this part is not recorded. This is me doing this live, which I often say, you should never try to do a tutorial live. But the idea that I'm playing with, why is that so light? There you go. Tony Blue. The idea is I'm going to go ahead and let's grab the line. Great. Let's turn on our light table. And so One of the things I need to do, I almost forgot about this. I need to make a little circle joint here. Let's hold on, Alt and Shift. Kind of cool there. Copy, paste in place, and I'm going to shrink this little dot down so I know where that center is. Great. All right. Now, that being said, I'm probably going to need a bunch of these, so that's there. Copy, put you on the lower leg as well. Paste. When you paste something on a different layer in Harmony, it does paste it automatically in the same spot. Paste again, because I'm on the same layer this time. Let's go there, midway. And for the upper leg, back there. For the upper leg, let's copy you. Go to upper leg, paste, and paste again. Great. Okay. So what I'll do now, let's come down to the foot. Let's get our line tool. And where is my line building? Sure. Snap to contour? Sure. All right, so we'll pull this out. And then hold down my command key to bend the little curve there. Pull this line out. Now line building is allowing me to kind of start this early. And if you look, that's kind of smoother than what it was initially. Do the same thing here. Yeah, nothing like tracing your one of your heroes and mentors' work, realizing that he's probably watching you somewhere. Yeah, no pressure. Okay. Upper leg. Actually, this is the lower leg. Let's go there. Go here. Now, this is, again, me kind of playing around and getting a decent look to this. What I can do now is, let me turn off the little guy there, and also turn off my onion skin. Not terrible. Is there an extra break there? Dude, what is that? Not a deal breaker, but I have missing my dot in the middle. I hate when I do that. Let's see, upper leg, yes. Click on that part, copy, paste in place, shrink, please. Now the reason I'm doing this is so I can tell where the pivots or little pivot point should be. Node view, great. So I will add a peg to each one of these, the foot, the lower leg, and upper leg. Dag nabbit, Lindsay Noller. I have in my head right now because I just put these in the wrong order based on the way the drawing is. Anyway, which, yes, Lindsay will be joining us later in the week. So what I want to do here is let's add a peg. We'll do Command Shift P. Where are your commands? Command Shift P. And so there's the foot, but for the lower leg and the upper leg, we also need something called a master peg, because we want to be able to move the foot. We want to be able to move the lower leg, but there should also be something that we can move the lower leg and the foot together, and eventually the upper leg, lower leg, and the foot. So that's what we call master pegs. So adding a peg to a peg, basically. And the reason I'm doing this early is it's going to allow me to set their points at the exact same time. Because by default, it's set dead center of our screen. So I'm going to grab our advanced animation here and move this guy down. And for the lower leg, thank you, move it down. So this is why I was doing those weird little dots. And the upper leg. Looks good. And let's go to our selection tool. Thank you. And by the way, pet peeve, I hate when people just do double P's. So lower leg master peg, and then this is going to be the front leg master peg. All right. And we'll take this cable, connect it to the foot. Take this one, connect it to the lower leg. Why would we do that? It is simply because when I click on the foot, that's there, and I can rotate that, pretty cool. If I press the letter B, it goes up the hierarchy, so I can bend that pretty good. Press B again, and I can bend that as well. And if, big word for 2 letters, let's grab all of these and reset. All our pegs, press the letter R. Thank you, Lindsay. So we have this here, and one thing I can do, technically, I should probably do a drawing substitution for the foot, meaning I've got this foot plain, but I can also have one where the foot is drawn bent. One little trick I'm going to do, one of my little hacks here, is to add what's called a deformer. So I can add one, let's say at the back, maybe toward the front. And this is a bone deformer, which basically means, if I grab my transform tool, I can actually deform that foot a little bit. And stretch that out if I need. And I'll be able to key that animation when I need to. Let's get rid of that keyframe there. F6. Oh, and let me show you exactly what the heck this looks like a little bit better there. We can update that blue, darken it in a bit. Let's go with saturation. No, hue, thank you. Nope, value. One of those. There we are. Because all the colors are dynamic, so. Let's go F6, and then we'll do a little key right next to it. Oh yeah, I need to extend that out. Thank you. So that way, let's press B, and press B again. I'm just doing just a little movement here. This is not me doing anything for real, but I can select that first key, and then on my keyboard press the plus sign a couple times, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I have a little tween. Let's deselect that so we can see what we're doing. So yeah, that is nothing permanent yet, but this is me just kind of playing around and making sure that my little circle joints are working correctly. And again, this is me setting up stuff, getting ready for our joint teaching class. So we are on lunch, so we're going to pause and shut down everything. We will be back at the end of, what is that called? Oh yeah, at the end of lunch. We'll be back in about an hour at 1 p.m. And let me see. I'm trying to remember, who the heck are we talking to when we get back? I know the answer to this. La, 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 la. Okay, when we get back, we'll be, oh cool, we'll be looking at our interview with Dan Flores, and we're actually playing around with one of Dan's illustrations, and taking his work from Illustrator, putting it into Harmony. I think it's got working with a hot rod. After that will be Mr. Rob Crump, And closing out the day will be Elliot Cohen. And we'll see if we can give away some things at the end or after Elliot's interview. See if we can give away some software. So this has been Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit. We're on lunch, and again, I'll reset this when we get back. Have a good one.